Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping into something that might seem niche at first glance, quinoa e-commerce.
Yeah, sounds specific, right. But the story it tells about, global shifts in eating and shopping, it's actually pretty fascinating.
Exactly. So we've got this stack of source material, basically detailing the global market for quinoa sold online.
Mm-hmm. And our plan for this deep dive is really to unpack that. What's driving this? Where is it happening fastest? What are the actual numbers, the projections?
And what does it all mean for consumers, for retail? We're sticking strictly to what these sources lay out.
Quinoa's journey has been quite something, from health food stores to, well, everywhere now.
And the online part of that is maybe bigger than people realize. So if you follow business trends, food tech, or you're just curious how small things add up globally, stick around.
Okay, let's get into it. The big picture first.
Yeah.
The sources make it clear. Globally, there's a really significant jump in demand for quinoa bought online. It's not just a small uptick.
And the numbers back that up strongly. The data shows back in 2021, total global revenues were $527.7 million.
Right. Then jumped just to 2025, and it's expected to be $710 million.
And then looking further out to 2033, it's projected to climb way up to $1,285.2 million.
Wow, that's more than double the 2021 figure, almost double the 2025 figure.
Exactly. And that works out to a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR, of 7.7%. Which is, a pretty healthy growth rate year on year for a food item like this.
Definitely. And what's really interesting, the sources stress this, is that it's happening everywhere. It's not just, say, North America or Europe. It's spread across advanced and emerging markets.
So it's a genuinely global thing.
Okay.
So what's pushing it? The sources point to two main things, right?
Mm-hmm. Two core drivers. First, it's this big shift towards plant-based nutrition. More people are looking for plant-based foods, healthier options.
And quinoa fits right in there, a nutrient-dense, versatile protein source.
Exactly. And the second driver, no surprise really, the sheer convenience of online grocery shopping.
This makes it easier to get everything, including stuff like quinoa, delivered.
But it's worth thinking for a sec why online specifically helps quinoa. Remember, for a lot of people, quinoa was kind of a discovery item initially.
Right, maybe not something your local store always had prominently displayed years ago.
Yeah. E-commerce platforms, though, with search bars, recommendations, wider stock, they make finding and buying something like quinoa much, much easier. Solves that discovery problem.
That makes sense. And it's shelf-stable, right?
Yeah.
Easy to ship, maybe seen as a bit premium too, so people might be more willing to buy it online, perhaps in larger amounts.
Yeah, it fits that e-commerce model quite well. Discovery, convenience, repurchase. Okay, so where is this growth actually happening? Let's break it down by region based on the source data.
Let's start with North America. The data says this is already a pretty well-established market.
Mm-hmm. Significant value there. It was $217.6 million back in 2021.
And projected to reach almost $500 million, $499.2 million by 2033.
And within North America, the U.S. is, well, it's the giant. It makes up the bulk of that, going from $151 million to a projected $330.9 million.
Canada is showing solid growth too, looking to more than double its market value over that same period.
But here's something the source flags Mexico. It's showing faster growth, relatively speaking.
That's true.
Yeah, starting smaller, obviously, at $21.4 million in 2021. But it's expected to hit $57.5 million by 2033. That's more than doubling.
And the reason cited.
It's interesting evolving food habits, so people trying new things, plus, crucially, better access to online platforms as e-commerce just gets bigger there.
Okay, let's cross the Atlantic. Europe, described as a lucrative market.
Yep, lucrative and growing steadily. From $157.6 million in 2021, projected to hit over $369 million by 2033.
And the UK seems to be leading that expansion.
According to the data, yes. The UK market value is set to more than double by 2033. Germany and France are also big contributors, showing strong growth, too.
All right, I see the numbers here. Germany going from roughly $28 million to nearly $70 million. France from about $19.5 million to almost $40
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.
million. France from about $19.5 million to almost $47 million.
And then you have other markets like Italy, Russia, Spain showing, moderate but really steady growth. They're all projected to nearly double or more by 2033 as well.
Even smaller markets mentioned, like Luxembourg, are part of this overall upward trend across the continent.
Exactly. Consistent growth pretty much everywhere in Europe, according to the source.
Okay, now for the region you flagged earlier, Asia Pacific. the fastest growing demand.
Yeah, this is where the numbers really jump. The projection is from $119 million in 2021 to $328.4 million by 2033.
Wow, that's almost tripling the market value.
It is, and China is the powerhouse behind a lot of that, expected to go from $45.4 million to a huge $136.4 million by 2033.
Japan and South Korea are also significant players with rapid growth.
And similar to Mexico and North America, the source highlights India here.
Rapid growth there too.
It's very rapid. Linked specifically to urbanization and growing health consciousness, India's online quinoa market is projected to more than triple by 2033.
Incredible. Australia's in there too, and Southeast Asia showing slower but still steady gains.
Right, so a really dynamic picture in Asia Pacific.
Okay, let's move to Latin America. Quinoa's homeland, essentially.
Exactly. And the sources suggest that connection, its native roots, actually helps its adoption through e-commerce there. People are familiar with it.
Makes sense. Brazil is the biggest market in the region.
Yes, expected to more than double its value by 2033. Argentina's on a similar track.
But Colombia really stands out in this data.
It does. The source points out its market nearly tripled between 2021 and the 2033 projection. It's a smaller market overall, but that's a very sharp increase, from $1.3 million to $4.5 million.
And Peru, even though it's a top global producer, its online market is growing significantly too from a smaller base. Chile also showing robust growth.
So even in its region of origin, e-commerce is driving significant new growth.
Lastly, the Middle East and Africa. Comparatively smaller market, the source says.
Yeah, smaller in absolute terms right now, but still on a healthy growth path, definitely part of the global trend.
Egypt and Turkey are mentioned as leading the way there.
Both projected to more than double their online quinoa markets by 2033. And the rest of the Middle East category also shows that consistent upward trend.
Wow. Okay, looking back at all of that, region by region, it really paints a picture.
It really does. And the source kind of sums it up nicely, calling it a diverse yet harmonized global surge.
Diverse but harmonized, how so?
Well, diverse because the starting points, the absolute market sizes, the specific growth rates, they vary a lot, country to country, region to region.
Okay.
But harmonized because the underlying forces are the same everywhere. People wanting healthier, plant-based foods, and people embracing the convenience of clicking to buy groceries. Those two things are powering this trend globally.
Got it. So just a recap for you listening. This online market for quinoa, it's booming, going from about $500 million in 2021 to projected well over $1 billion by 2033.
And it's driven by those big shifts, health trends, plant-based eating, and just the massive convenience of e-commerce.
Regionally, North America is big and established. Asia Pacific is where the really explosive growth is happening right now.
But you see strong expansion across Europe, Latin America, including its native region, and also picking up steam in the Middle East and Africa. It's genuinely global.
And understanding this specific dive into quinoa, it really shows how those big abstract ideas like changing diets and tech shifts have very real, measurable effects on the market.
Right. It impacts everything from, what big online retailers stock to the kinds of niche food brands that can suddenly find a global audience.
Okay, so let's wrap up with that provocative thought, pulled from the source analysis.
Yeah, this idea that the diverse yet harmonized global surge we see with quinoa e-commerce driven by diet, convenience, health focus, probably isn't just about quinoa.
Right. So the thought to leave you with is, how might these same powerful forces be quietly reshaping the online markets for other foods you buy? Or maybe influencing the popularity of things you're only just starting to see pop up online?
Okay, let's get into this. We're doing a deep dive today looking at the world of quinoa, specifically how it's just exploded in e-commerce. We've been reading through parts of a report, The Rise of Quinoa in E-commerce, from Cognitive Market Research.
Yes, some interesting stuff in there.
Definitely. So our goal here is to sort of unpack what's really going on. What's driving it, what's holding it back, and what new trends are popping up online.
And what's really striking, I think, is just how perfectly quinoa fits with all the current health trends.
Right.
People everywhere kind of see it as this superfood. It's packed with protein, fiber, minerals.
Gluten-free thing is huge, too.
Exactly. That's massive. So it becomes a real go-to for health-conscious folks, especially, in cities across North America, Europe, Asia Pacific, people who are actively looking for this stuff online.
Yeah, you can picture people searching Amazon or Walmart, specifically typing in like organic quinoa or gluten-free quinoa.
Yeah.
Maybe they have celiac disease, or maybe they just want more protein. But why e-commerce specifically? What makes online selling such a big driver for this?
Well, that's where convenience really kicks in, doesn't it?
Okay.
Online, you just find incredible variety. White, red, black quinoa, tricolor. Often in bulk sizes or these combo packs you just wouldn't find easily offline.
Sure.
Plus, being able to compare prices instantly, read reviews from other buyers, and then just click a button to get it delivered.
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
Read reviews from other buyers, and then just click a button to get it delivered. That's a huge draw.
Yeah, and those digital grocery habits people picked up during the pandemic, they seem to have stuck around.
They really have. And it's not just about, buying a plain bag of quinoa either.
What do you mean?
Well, think about movements like veganism or just the general plant-based trend. That fuels a lot of online demand too.
Right, like food influencers.
Precisely. They show off these amazing quinoa bowls or burgers on Instagram, maybe YouTube.
Yeah.
And people don't just look. They click straight through to online stores, iHerb, Flipkart, maybe specialty vegan shops, and buy the ingredients right then.
Makes sense. Direct response. But it can't all be smooth sailing, right? What are the hurdles?
No, definitely not. Price sensitivity is a big one. A significant restraint, the report calls it.
Okay.
Online, once you factor in packaging, maybe fancier branding, delivery costs, quinoa can end up being quite a bit more expensive than, say, local grains that are readily available.
Yeah, I can see that.
And that's particularly true in regions that are more price sensitive, maybe Southeast Asia or Latin America. If you're in a tier 2 city in India or maybe rural Brazil, local options might just seem much more practical, cost-wise.
That cost difference is definitely a factor. And what about just trusting food you buy online? Are people still a bit hesitant, worried about freshness, or if it's actually what it says it is?
Oh, absolutely. That trust factor is crucial. People worry, is this really the product advertised? What's the expiry date? Where did it actually come from? That can make consumers pretty wary.
So brands need to be really clear.
Exactly. The report really stresses that. Brands have got to build trust by being totally transparent about the origin, how it's processed, and showing clear certifications. Things like USDA organic or the EU organic logo.
Right.
Without that kind of reassurance, getting repeat customers is tough.
And then there are just the practical headaches, right? Logistics.
Yeah, the real world stuff.
Yeah.
Shipping conditions, storage, they can seriously impact the quality.
Like moisture.
Exactly. Imagine, moisture getting into packages during monsoon season deliveries in somewhere like Indonesia or India. That leads straight to spoilage.
And bad reviews, lost customers.
Yeah, all of that. But, despite those challenges, the market is evolving. There are some really interesting trends shaping up.
Like what?
Well, the demand for organic and certified quinoa is really growing. Consumers are actively looking for non-GMO, fair trade, chemical-free options. And the report notes that products with those seals, USDA, organic, fair trade certified, they can often command a slightly higher price and definitely build more customer loyalty.
That's interesting. And I also thought it was fascinating how brands are getting quinoa to people in new ways, like these health boxes or online meal kits.
Yes, that integration is smart.
Whether it's, part of a vegan starter kit or maybe a fitness bundle or even a plan for diabetics, it makes discovering quinoa super easy. We're seeing more sales of those kinds of recipe kits with quinoa in places like the UK and Australia.
Yeah, putting it into these curated experiences is definitely clever.
Yeah.
Speaking of discovery, digital marketing is huge here too.
Influencers again?
Influencers, yeah. But also recipe-led content, maybe on Pinterest or TikTok.
Yeah.
That drives a ton of traffic directly to the e-commerce listings.
Okay.
So brands are leveraging that. They're bundling quinoa maybe with ready-to-cook sauces or different flavors, making it really appealing, especially for busy city dwellers.
So putting it all together, it's a market really pushed forward by health trends and just how easy online shopping is.
Right.
But it's also facing real challenges around cost and making sure consumers trust the product online.
Navigating those carefully.
And constantly innovating through things like organic certifications and really smart digital marketing.
It's a complex picture for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely a growing space online.
Absolutely. So as we see this mix of health focus and online convenience continuing to shape things, it kind of brings up a question for you listening.
Yeah.
When you're making your own food purchases online, how do you personally weigh those factors? Things like the cost versus how transparent the sourcing is versus whether it has a specific certification. What matters most when you decide what actually goes into your virtual cart? Something to think about.
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.